Good evening and welcome to the Capitol Report on Entity Television. I'm Steve Lance. Here's what's coming up. Ukraine's President Zelenskyy making a direct appeal to U.S. lawmakers and President Biden, asking Washington for more aid. How Republicans are reacting as they demand priority for action on the U.S. southern border. And with the full House set to vote on authorizing the impeachment inquiry into President Biden, Republican leadership appears to have support, teeing up a vote for tomorrow. Find out why Speaker Johnson now describes it as a legal step. And will Hunter Biden show up to testify before Congress tomorrow? A congressman tells us what he thinks will happen if he does and what Republicans will do if he does not. As the White House warns that it is running out of money for Ukraine, the Ukrainian president is in Washington to make a direct plea to lawmakers yet again. But Republicans are standing firm in their two prerequisites for more Ukraine aid. NTD's White House correspondent Iris Tao has more.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy in Washington for the third time. But unlike the first time he's here when he got a standing ovation in Congress, he's now making a last-ditch plea to lawmakers to keep U.S. support going for his embattled country.
Congress needs to pass a supplemental funding for Ukraine before they break the holiday recess, before they give Putin the greatest Christmas gift they could possibly give him.
Zelensky's Tuesday visit comes as President Biden's request for another $60 billion to Ukraine is stalled in Congress. The U.S. has already sent over $100 billion to Ukraine, and Republicans are demanding accountability over that money sent and also insisting that any additional Ukraine aid must be tied with real changes to President Biden's border policies. It's unclear whether the White House will be able to negotiate any deal with Republicans before Congress goes into recess later this week. But the Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson, who met with Zelenskyy for half an hour earlier today, says is not changing his mind when it comes to conditions for more Ukraine aid.
We needed clarity on what we're doing in Ukraine and how we'll have proper oversight of the spending of precious taxpayer dollars of the American citizens, and we needed a transformative change at the border. Thus far, we've gotten neither.
Meanwhile, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer is urging Speaker Johnson to keep the House in session to allow negotiations to continue over both Ukraine aid and border policies. Back to you.
House Republicans have been investigating President Biden and his family for months now. They aim to formalize the probe with a House vote on the impeachment inquiry. NTD's Melina Wisecup joins us from Capitol Hill now to discuss. So, Melina, Speaker Johnson today said authorizing the inquiry with a full House vote is a legal decision. Why is that?
Well, that's for a number of reasons, Steve, but potentially to sum it up here, the fact is that Republicans say that there's information that they're not getting, but that they need from the White House and documents, for example, from the National Archives. They say that there's witness testimony that they need from White House employees that they're unable to get because the White House is blocking that. The White House has pushed back, saying that they have given over documents from the Treasury Department to comply with this investigation into the sitting president. However, that Republicans are just saying that they're not getting enough information and that they need more. Here's what Johnson had to say earlier today about this.
We have no choice. To fulfill our constitutional responsibility, we have to take the next step. We're not making a political decision. It's not. It's a legal decision.
And to that point, another reason why Speaker Johnson is saying that this is a legal decision is so that they can enforce their subpoenas in court, such as the subpoena against Hunter Biden and the potential contempt of Congress charges that is coming his way potentially if he doesn't show up for that 9:30 a.m. deposition tomorrow. The latest we've heard from this on the issue is the fact that his legal team has offered for him to do a public testimony, although Republicans have rejected that, insisting a private one instead. And Republicans say they have not yet heard back from Hunter Biden's legal team since then.
So with this vote coming tomorrow, Melina, President Biden's been asked about this, specifically why he engaged with some of his son's business associates if he stayed out of his business, as he said. So what's the president's answer to this?
So he's responding along the same line of messaging that he's used throughout this entire probe, and that is that it's not true. We'll show you the president's most recent comment on this impeachment inquiry into him, as well as what Republicans were telling me about whether or not the evidence they have at this point in time warrants a vote on the impeachment itself. Take a look.
I'm not going to comment that I did not. And It's just a bunch of lies.
It's the oldest story that is out there where, a politician takes money. And it's becoming more and more evident that that has happened. But we need to make sure that the American people are able to see the proof like we are seeing the proof. Joe Biden is innocent until proven guilty. We need to bring the facts forward.
It seems to be every time they ask for some records, something else is revealed. So I don't think that we're quite there yet. And so that's why I'm willing to vote for the inquiry.
So you can see how Republicans are hesitant to jump the gun on this. They're really careful about doing that. On the one hand, they will say that there is evidence. On the other hand, they're hesitant to say that this evidence means that the impeachment on the president itself is warranted. Some are anticipating that this inquiry could wrap up by the springtime, at which point it is highly likely, Steve, that we will see a vote by the full House of Representatives on whether or not to impeach the president. Steve?
NTD's Melina Wisecup reporting live for us from Capitol Hill. Thank you, Melina. And so will Hunter Biden show up to testify before Congress tomorrow? Congressman Kelly Armstrong will join us now to discuss what he thinks may happen next. Congressman Kelly Armstrong, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Of course, Congressman, Hunter Biden indicted on 9 new charges Thursday on tax evasion related charges. That's on top of the federal firearms charges he's facing in Delaware. Florida Congressman Byron Donalds, your colleague on the Hill there on the House Oversight Committee, went on Fox News Sunday and said that Hunter Biden wanted to use the deposition before that committee to put on a spectacle. I want to play some sound and get your reaction on the other side.
Well, listen, he's been threatening not to go under oath for weeks now. So the fact that he's now been indicted should not encumber our ability in the House to be able to have, number one, a closed-door session first, to have written testimony under oath, and then for him to be able to move towards an open hearing. But what Hunter Biden wants to do is to use the open hearing aspects of congressional hearings to put on a show, to put on a spectacle, without actually having a deposition of his words under oath before he reaches an open session. So we're not going to let that happen.
Congressman, if you could just sort of break that down for us and tell us exactly what that would mean.
Yeah, well, we requested a deposition, and that is our right to do. I think we fully intend to have a public hearing as well. But the indictments don't change whether or not he has to show up. I mean, he still has to appear before us. Otherwise, we have our remedies. If he doesn't like a question or doesn't feel like he can answer a question, he can always plead the Fifth. It's happened numerous times in congressional hearings before, and I'm assuming if Hunter Biden actually shows up tomorrow, he'll have to do it a lot.
Congressman, you sit on the Committee on Weaponization of the Federal Government, which has its own investigation of Joe Biden's dealings with Hunter's business and Biden's alleged influence peddling. Hunter is expected to be deposed. Do you expect him to show up? And what will happen if he ultimately does not?
Well, if he doesn't, I would assume we would move forward with contempt proceedings. That is our next remedy. You don't just get to ignore a subpoena from Congress. That's one of the reasons we filed the impeachment inquiry, and we filed a companion resolution that makes all prior subpoenas part of that inquiry. But I expect if he does show up, he's going to end up having to plead the Fifth to a lot of the questions we ask.
So if the Department of Justice has, in fact, been running interference for Hunter Biden with the timing of this indictment that falls under the purview of the work that you are doing, actually, will there be more inquiry into how the agency is, in this case, potentially using its power to thwart the 3 committee investigations into the Biden family, which are central to the impeachment inquiry?
Well, I actually have a lot of questions about that from the beginning of this investigation. You know, the presidential transition team interfered with the FBI's attempt to interview Hunter Biden. If it wasn't for 2 IRS whistleblowers, we wouldn't even know a lot of this information because somebody along the lines at DOJ was slowing down these investigations. They weren't actively seeking information when they had credible sources from a confidential source in Ukraine. The DOJ is a really interesting place in that you can do a lot by not doing much, and they sure have. The Hunter Biden investigation has been the bottom file on their desk for a very long time.
Congressman, lastly, you submitted House Resolution 918 to direct the 3 House committees to continue their probes as part of the impeachment inquiry. That measure is slated for a vote tomorrow. Do you think you have shored up enough votes to pass the resolution for an inquiry with an even slimmer majority?
Yeah, I think it's going to pass. I mean, we have a 3-vote majority, and we've had some stumbling blocks along the way this Congress. So until the actual vote passes, I'll never be 100% confident. But we've been working hard, and I think that's a tremendous credit to Chairman Jordan, Chairman Smith, and Chairman Comer in how they've presented this evidence and these facts, not just to the members of Congress, but the American people.
Congressman Kelly Armstrong, really appreciate you joining us. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
The House Freedom Caucus has chosen Virginia Congressman Bob Good to be its next chairman. We asked what challenges he's dealing with in this new role.
Trying to navigate through trying to cut our spending year over year, trying to force the Senate and the White House, who have no interest in securing the border, to do that, in fact.
Good was first elected in 2020. He was one of the 8 Republicans who voted to oust Kevin McCarthy as Speaker earlier this year. Thank you for watching the Capitol Report. If you want to see our full broadcast, check us out at epochtv.com.